when you say to your brother,
Yeah.
you know, I can't tell you my bets
Yeah.
because that'll ruin the magic. You understand? You make a living by telling people your bets.
Yeah, but
And your fantasy advice.
It's always
that's literally how you put food on the table.
It's always a little parlay, Matthew, that I gotta keep to myself.
By the way, do you know why that happened when you took the under on Laporta's receiving yards and then he got the one pass for 52?
On the trick play.
On the trick play. Do you know why that happened? Because you didn't tell your brother about it. That's karma. That's what it is.
Yeah.
The fantasy
I
gods,
thought about that.
The gambling gods looked down and said, you know what?
selfish.
Lawrence is being selfish. He's not helping out his own kin, his flesh and blood. We're going to teach him. We're going to teach him a lesson.
I'm not
and you know
going
what
to
they
disagree
did?
with that.
They taught you a lesson. There you go.
They've been teaching me a lesson the past couple weeks, too.
Yeah, it's been tough.
It's humbling.
Yeah, it's humbling.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Connor Rogers, Matthew Berry, and a welcome back, Jay Croucher. Aren't you so thrilled to be back?
Yes, I am.
Jay, I will say this. No, I was just going to say, like, unlike Lawrence, our colleague and friend Lawrence, Jay is very generous with his gambling.
He'll give out
picks.
anything.
He'll
Giants
give out,
80-1.
He'll give anything. Just the other day, I was over at his house. Rio came in and said, "Daddy, who do you like tonight?" In this parlay, and you gave her an SGP right there.
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
It was
Their
an
own
undercover
account.
that.
Yep. No, I'm very big on getting them started early.
Yeah.
Do all three of the games have DraftKings accounts?
No,
Well, no, that's
they
not
don't.
technically legal. Yeah, I
it's
kind
not
of forgot that
technically
part.
legal.
No,
Yeah.
but they just, but it's fine.
Getting bad habits early. We were watching a week ago because I'm on the Mets to win the pennant, right?
Sure.
And so my daughter was watching Dodgers Padres Game 5 with me, and she asked, which team do we want to win? And I was like, injuries. We want injuries. We're cheering for pain because we just want whoever wins to get through.
It's an honest response.
What I feel like you should do is, because they may not be massive sports fans. I know you take them to a lot of games. You're actually a great dad. But
Surprised in that statement. Actually,
because
you might be surprised by this.
Well, we joke about it a lot on that.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you follow Jay on Instagram, it's a lot of you taking your daughters to various kid-friendly events,
Sure.
not just being a degenerate gambler in front of them. But what you ought to do is, like, instead of like trying to teach them sports, why don't you just say, all right, we're watching Bubble Guppies here. All right, which one do you think solves the mystery or whatever? It's been a while since I've watched Bubble. I used to watch Bubble Guppies all the time with my daughters. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, you could like
Guppies.
whatever, or PJ Masks.
Yeah.
Hey, who do you think the bad guy is?
Yeah.
And have them bet.
Price-
like
price
how-
markets.
Yeah,
That's good.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
It's all probability.
Yeah, it's all
just a good
probability.
old-fashioned
It's-
probability between father and daughters.
Yeah, exactly. I think it might be the guy in the old man that was mean at the beginning of the episode. It turns out he might be the bad guy.
Plus 175.
You're right, exactly.
Hey, you could do it. We've
Just
seen you do
something
this.
to think about. Just
Exactly.
something to think about.
Yeah, we'll get into the rotation.
All right, we'll get you ready for Thursday Night Football with our best bets, of course. But before we do that, we got love-hate for you. Yes, it is love-hate, and as we always do, we kick it off with the big-time running backs here, and we got to start with Kyren Williams making the love list. And listen, Kyren Williams might be coming off a bye week, but the work didn't stop for the Rams star running back. Take a listen.
I'm not using this bye week as a bye week. I might go see my sisters and whatnot, but during the week I'm going to continue to keep working. You know, I'm not using this as, we get to kick our feet up and relax. There's no reason to kick our feet up. You know, we're not on autopilot right now. We got to continue to keep going. We got to continue to just keep having that positive energy throughout the building and throughout the team, because we know who we are and we know what we are capable of. So we just got to continue to keep meeting those standards.
The mindset of a fifth-round pick, Matthew.
There you go. Yeah, there's no relaxing. You relax. I'm not going to relax. Yeah, 100%. Kyren Williams is my #1 running back this week.
Wow.
You heard me. So far this year, he is averaging 21.8 touches per game. That leads all running backs with an 85% snap share. Running backs that have seen at least 13 touches against the Raiders this year, averaging 19.9 fantasy points per game. Every starting running back to face the Raiders has scored at least 15 fantasy points, Jay. And honestly, I just gave you a bunch of stats as to Kyren Williams' usage and how running backs that get a lot of usage against the Raiders do very well. But honestly, I don't think I needed any of that. I could have just said, like, they made Najee Harris look good. Like, Najee Harris looked great against the Raiders last week.
Best game of the season
Catching straight
for him, by far.
Like, scored his first touchdown.
Beautiful touchdown run,
Yes,
too, wasn't it?
yeah.
He got tackled by 7 different guys, and none of them wanted it.
I'm just saying, like, when you make Najee Harris look good, imagine what Kyren Williams off a bye can do.
Anyone remember Blake Corum, who was the reason why Najee Harris slid in drafts? The thing is he's getting this crazy
Kyren
workload.
Williams slid in drafts.
Sorry. Najee Harris slid into us for organic reasons that were proven out to be correct.
Yes.
So Kyren Williams, the fact that he's gotten 65 carries in the past 3 weeks, they keep losing as well.
Yeah.
They're losing games, they're getting blown out in games, and Kyren Williams still gets the workload. Like last year when he was healthy, he was producing at a top 2, top 3 running back, offensive player of the year type of level. I think the Rams are going to get progressively better as well, and they get a super favorable matchup against a team right now that is just broken. There's a few broken teams in the NFL, but the Raiders right now are kind of close to the top of the list. The Browns are top of the list, but the Raiders might be second.
Browns are top of the list. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know what? I mean, hopefully, Tom. I will tell you that, like, if I was buying stock, give me more Raider stock than Brown stock, just because. Listen, Tom Brady wins. I'm dead serious. I'm like, you know, whatever. Like, Tom Brady isn't going to be a minority owner. Tom Brady isn't just going in there to be like, Mark Davis is going to shut up and listen to Tom Brady. I bet you change come to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Just knowing how Tom Brady handles his business in like every other aspect of his life, he is somebody that is incredibly prepared, has an unbelievable team around him. I don't know. I'm just that occurred to me just as we're just sitting here talking.
Well, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
I too will take him in the head-to-head against the Browns.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yes. But they don't have Deshaun Watson or his contract.
It's unbelievable.
A lot of problems over there in Cleveland.
The karma bus.
I mean,
it's hard.
It really is. They may have to. I wonder if the Browns, like, because they're going to just keep with Deshaun and maybe they have the number 1 or number 2 pick this year. Do you think they say to somebody, they say, look, we will give you the number 1 pick in next year's draft and Deshaun Watson if you just take our contract off our books?
I don't think it's enough.
It's not enough.
Yeah, you could even more.
It's a fully guaranteed contract.
Might
It's
be
the
right.
worst
Worst contract in the
quarterback
history of American sports.
It really is.
By
Is
far.
it,
Not even close.
just American sports? You don't think, is there a global?
Latvian sports? No,
Yeah.
there's a few contracts handed out in Latvia during the Cold War that were. No, I don't know. I got no idea. I don't know what I'm talking
All right,
about.
fair enough. Anyway, sorry, Cleveland. We feel bad for you. We really do. We feel bad. I was having breakfast with a good buddy of mine who's a Browns fan. Seriously, we talked
grim.
about this for like half the breakfast. He's despondent.
Yeah. Well, Nick Chubb comes back. We'll get some good
we got
vibes out of Nick Chubb.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
So Kyren Williams, RB1, we got there somehow. Tony Pollard, Jay, also is a top 10 play. Tajay Spears is week to week with a hamstring injury, which means more volume for Tony Pollard. Buffalo does not look good against running backs right now.
No, and Tony Pollard looks like the guy that he did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He looks the same level of explosiveness. Buffalo fixed Breece Hall for a night anyway. That was the first good game that Breece Hall really had played. They made him look, he didn't look super explosive, but he was able to get yards. And look, this Titans team, their issue is throwing the ball. Running the ball, they've been perfectly fine with Tony Pollard. And the way this Buffalo run defense has struggled, even though the Titans are, 8.5, 9-point dogs, I still think Tony Pollard is must start.
Bills give up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. 5 different running backs this year have scored at least 19 fantasy points against the Bills. Again, they've allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Do we think Amari Cooper can tackle? Can maybe he play linebacker or something like that? Because the Bills also, by the way, allow the most receiving yards to opposing running backs. Tajay Spears likely not going to play. He's banged up as well. So Pollard, who has a double-digit target share in every game this season, should be used early and often in a great matchup against Buffalo. Top 10 play for me this week.
J.K. Dobbins just misses the top 10, Matthew. He's RB11 against Arizona. We say this every week. Arizona's run defense is struggling. They've allowed the second most rushing yards per game to running backs so far.
Yeah, and teams that face the Cardinals, I think both because of game script and because of the matchup, are averaging 26.7 running back carries against. That's the 4th most in the NFL. So J.K. Dobbins, who last week in the first game with Gus Edwards on IR, got 27 touches. And I think that volume of workload, they like Kamani Vidal. Like, you'll see some of that, but, like, it's going to be all J.K. Dobbins top 12 play for me this week.
Yep, and the thing with J.K. Dobbins too is that with the Chargers, they're going to be favored in the next 4 games. And they're also going to be favored in their final 4 games of the season too. They have a very easy schedule. J.K. Dobbins, the fact that he's getting 25 carries, I think there were concerns that, coming off all the injuries.
Yeah.
Like, J.K. Dobbins is on a 1-year contract. Like, the Chargers are going to use him because he's their best option at the moment. And there's just not that many guys in football who get the volume and just the kind of the unopposed backfield that J.K. Dobbins gets at the moment.
So some others receiving votes here, and obviously the first name is injury dependent with Devon Achane, Rhamondre Stevenson as well. So keep an eye on those guys, especially their teammates, notably Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright if Achane doesn't play, Antonio Gibson if Rhamondre Stevenson is out. But obviously you like those matchups, Matthew, against the Colts and Jacksonville.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day. It feels like Miami figured out their run game before the bye. And it's a great matchup against the Colts, who allow the 5th most rush yards per game to opposing running backs. Colts also bottom 10 in terms of most receiving yards allowed to running backs. We've seen Achane evolve more and more in the passing game. And if Achane is not cleared in time, then I do think Mostert and Jalen Wright in that order would be reasonable flex starts against the Colts. Rhamondre Stevenson against Jacksonville as well. 4 of the 5 running backs to see at least 15 touches against the Jags this year have scored 18 or more fantasy points. That offense seems like it got a boost with Drake Maye under center. If Stevenson can't go, yes, I agree with you on Antonio Gibson. And then finally, Kareem Hunt. We don't know yet what Clyde Edwards-Helaire role is going to be. He's been activated by the Chiefs, but I think for 1 week at least, for this week, it should be the Kareem Hunt show for the Chiefs. 76% of the team's running back touches in the 2 games since Kareem Hunt started, including 6 of their 7 red zone touches they've given up as well. Running backs that have seen at least 15 touches against the Niners so far this year, averaging over 18 fantasy points per game. So Kareem Hunt, who's a borderline top 20 play for me this week, I think has at least 1 more week of strong fantasy relevance.
Yeah, and the thing with Kareem Hunt too is going up against the Niners, like there's this perception that the Niners have a really good defense. The Niners do not have a really good defense at the moment. They have 2 really good defensive players, and that's about it. Now, those 2 really good defensive players might be the 2 best defensive players in all of football, in Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, certainly in that discussion, obviously, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, etc. But like, they just have no defensive tackles left. There's just no one there. This isn't the same defense that it was under DeMeco Ryans, under Robert Saleh. It is a new lineup. They're very injured. No Dre Greenlaw, no Hufanga. Travarius Ward may come back. But this is a team that can be run on, certainly.
That's a great point, Jay. They're just running out of bodies right now, and they are very, very top-heavy. That's why they've been scored on, and they've lost some games that they shouldn't have this year. Move over to the hate list, and we stick with the 49ers.
And by the way, Andy Reid off a bye is like one of the best bets always in football. Andy Reid off a bye is unbelievable.
And a lot of that is his defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, always has a good game plan coming out of the bye as well. And that doesn't bode well for Jordan Mason, who makes the hate list here as RB23, Matthew. And this isn't Jordan Mason specific. Whatever 49ers running back has to play, you don't like the matchup.
If Mason doesn't come back, I would feel the same way. I'd feel even worse about Isaac Rendo or Patrick Taylor. But assuming Jordan Mason is back and getting a full workload, I still don't love him. Outside the top 20, makes the hate list because running backs that have faced the Chiefs this year, look at some of these. Look at some of the guys here. Derrick Henry under 50 yards, J.K. Dobbins under 35, Bijan under 35, Alvin Kamara under 30. No running back has scored more than 13.2 points against Kansas City, and the 4 that I just mentioned, Derrick Henry, J.K. Dobbins, Bijan Robinson, Alvin Kamara, they combined to average 11.4 fantasy points per game. Chiefs allow the second fewest running back rush yards per game. So hard to see Jordan Mason, who may not be 100% healthy, having a big game here as well. You're basically hoping he gets into the end zone.
Yeah, and I think the Chiefs have become something of a pass funnel as well because the rush defense has been so incredible, and then like no L'Jarius Sneed anymore to play, shadow man coverage against Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, and then just the safeties as well with the Chiefs. It's not an amazing situation. Think about how Rashid Shaheed got open deep on Monday Night Football. So yeah, this is a team that is very difficult to run on at the moment.
For his career, out of a bye, Andy Reid straight up 21-4.
That's good. Now, to be fair, Andy Reid has been consistently on great teams, and so these teams, they typically just win, regardless of bye or not. But I agree, there is probably
they're undefeated so far. I understand. None of us think the Chiefs are a great team. They're also
it is hilarious. We did this last year for a long time.
Yeah, they're not good. It's not going to happen. And then you look up and
the confetti is falling down.
And Taylor Swift is kissing Travis Kelce, and you're like, they just won it again. And so we sit here and say they don't look good. They're 5-0.
Yeah,
they're 5-0 off the bye.
They have a really good defense. They have a great interior offensive line, and they have Patrick Mahomes still. So that's really all that matters. I do think the Niners will win this game, though. They're 1.5-point favorites. I just think as well, 10 days
I
as well.
say the Kansas City Chiefs win this game.
Where'd your dinner?
Done and done.
You know what? You can have 1.5 points too.
Oh,
whoa.
fantastic.
Feeling generous.
All right,
you made that comment about me being a good father. You can have 1.5 points.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Me and Rio, we love you.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, come on, Kyle. Figure it out. Figure out Spags for once.
I'm a believer. 21-4. About to be 22-4.
Speaking of a pass funnel, Jay, how about
most important, cover first, win later. That's the most important rule. Everyone knows.
23-22.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
The Baltimore Ravens defense, this is the best run defense in football, Jay. That does not bode well for the Bucs backfield, both Rachaad White and Bucky Irving.
Well, yeah, so these guys are not only going up against the Baltimore rush defense, they're going up against each other and Sean Tucker as well.
Right.
And so Todd Bowles made the comment that, we're going to go with the hot hand. Hot hand are the two worst words for any fantasy manager to hear on planet Earth. So I just don't feel good about any of these guys. This Baltimore pass defense as well quietly hasn't been that great this year, whereas the Bucs pass offense has been phenomenal. So I suspect this is going to be a Baker Mayfield game and a Chris Godwin game.
Yeah, and hopefully Mike Evans, if he's healthy, I think he will as well. It's the Monday night game. So no team allows a fewer yards per carry to opposing running backs than Baltimore, 2.9. Teams facing the Ravens are averaging just 15.7 running back carries per game. That's third fewest in the NFL. And to your point, there's three different guys there. It's actually been a committee prior to the emergence of Sean Tucker. Since week 3, no Tampa Bay running back has seen more than 40% of the team's running back rushes. And now you add Sean Tucker to the mix, who that genie's not going back into the bottle. And so is it a three-headed monster? Is it a two-headed monster? What I have said all this week, and I said this on our waiver wire show, I think this is actually great. In an ideal world, you're not starting any Buccaneers running back. You see how Monday night plays out. You see how Todd Bowles and the coaching staff deploys the running backs in Tampa Bay, and then you can sort of okay, now we know. Did Sean Tucker, overcome Rachaad White? Is he, higher on the depth chart? Or is it that they go back to still just feeding Rachaad White because, quote unquote, he was the guy? So I think hopefully, even though I don't think they'll have a lot of production, hopefully it'll be at least instructive in terms of who's playing the most snaps, who's out there the most, and who they want to use. So either way, ideally, I would not start any of them. Sadly, in the League of Assholes, I'm going to have to start Bucky Irving.
That's just how it goes.
Because you need a live body. Because he qualifies at running back.
Yes.
That's it.
He can touch the football.
He can touch the football.
You might get 3 points.
Exactly. It's just there's so little people on the. Yeah, exactly.
Our last running back here is Zach Moss. Jay only has 41% of the running back touches over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Chase Brown's looked really good.
Yeah, he did. He almost cost them the game, to be fair.
Yes, he has his moments. But
the fumble went out of bounds, then he broke the touchdown at the end. So, yeah, feel amazing about Zach Moss now against the Browns. The Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. I think the Bengals should be bigger than 5.5-point favorites, by the way. I think that's not big enough a gap between Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson and their respective teams. But until something changes or Chase Brown gets hurt, I don't think you feel amazing about Zach Moss.
No, it doesn't. It just feels like it's trending that way. After he had that fumble, he did not touch the ball again. And Chase Brown gives him an explosiveness. The pro Zach Moss argument is just oh, well, he's solid. You know what I mean? But Chase Brown gives him an explosiveness. And honestly, given the struggles of that defense, that's what they need right now, is they need explosive playmakers in the offense. So Zach Moss is just somebody that until we see more of a consistent role there, I just don't think you can start with any confidence. He makes the hate list.
This Sunday night, it's a showdown of two teams vying for position in a crowded group of AFC contenders. Catch Aaron Rodgers and the new-look Jets take on T.J. Watt and the Steelers in Pittsburgh.
And the same old Steelers.
Coverage starts at maybe not, maybe Russell Wilson.
Maybe Russ.
Coverage starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. We're taking our first break. When we're back, we got the pass catchers and quarterbacks for love-hate.
Did the Jets win that game?
I think they do.
Keep going. The ball's going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming. I'm going to keep throwing it to you, and you're going to make it. We may come right back to that one, too. That guy can't cover you.
Turbo's up. Here's the snap. Andy fires downfield. 1-6. Touchdown. End zone. Center cut. Diontae Johnson.
Hey, I told you it's going to keep coming to you. Great job.
Love-hate continues with the pass catchers. That was Andy Dalton mic'd up from Week 4 against the Bengals. You heard him. He's going to keep throwing it to Diontae Johnson, Matthew, who headlines our pass catchers love list.
Yes, for sure. It's worth noting, by the way, Diontae Johnson did not practice today, so obviously we will keep an eye on that injury. But assuming he goes against Washington, I like him this week. Currently my number 7 wide receiver. When Andy Dalton has been under center, he's averaging 18.3 fantasy points per game. He's got a 29% target share. And wide receivers that have seen at least 7 targets against the Commanders are averaging over 19 fantasy points per game. Why do I bring up 7 targets? Because Diontae Johnson has gotten at least 10 targets in 3 of the 4 games with the Red Rifle, the Red Rooster, the Red Rocket under center.
Red stuff with Andy.
Yeah,
I mean,
under the red stuff,
Yes.
under the red beard.
Almost 11 targets per game. I mean, this is like Cooper Kupp, Michael Thomas, OPOY type of stuff from Diontae Johnson. So we've always known the talent was there with Diontae. He's just always been in these weird situations where he's had someone opposite him like Pickens stealing targets, or he just hasn't randomly been getting in the end zone. As kind of bleak-ish as things are in Carolina at the moment, like this is the Dalton to Johnson is fun, and every week it's productive.
Mike Evans also makes the love list, but Jay, another guy that also did not practice today, so something to keep an eye on. But it feels like Mike Evans is going to play. We talk about this when we talk about the Bucs. Under Liam Cohen, this offense is very pass-happy. They are passing over expectation. That has helped Mike Evans.
Yep, they're third in the NFL in pass rate over expectation after being negative on that front last season. So a much more pass-happy, kind of modern, I would say, NFL offense under Cohen compared to what Dave Canales was doing last season with the relentless runs with Rachaad White for 2 yards on first down. So I think with Evans is a strange one because Godwin has been so incredibly good, but Evans coming into the season was the guy that everyone wanted. I think you still have to regress a little bit to preseason expectations, so you probably have Godwin over Evans from now. But the big Mike Evans game is coming. He is still Mike Evans. He's been a bit banged up, but against the Baltimore pass defense that frankly has struggled a little bit. It's not the same unit that it was last season. I think this is a favorable matchup for Evans.
Not shocking. What do I like? I like touchdowns, right? And so Diontae Johnson has the most end zone targets in the season, as you see there on your screen. But who's number 2? It's our boy, Mike Evans. And it's worth noting, yes, he did not practice today, but it's the Monday night game. So their practice schedule is a little bit behind. If he doesn't feel better by tomorrow or Saturday, then we can start panicking. But right now, all indications are that he's going to be fine in what should be a great matchup. We already talked about how we don't like going against that run defense. They're kind of a pass funnel defense. When you face the Ravens, you're forced to throw, and you're often successful. Baltimore has allowed multiple touchdowns to wide receivers in 3 of their past 4 games. Baltimore's given up the most receptions and yards on deep passes. Why do I bring that up? Because Mike Evans has the second most end zone targets this season, 5 in the last 3 games. They throw to him deep as well. Obviously, Godwin plays more in the slot. So, Mike Evans is a top 12 play for me this week.
Zay Flowers, a top 15 play for you, Matthew. He comes in as wide receiver 14 in this same game against the Bucs. The Bucs are allowing the 6th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers.
This should be a fun, entertaining game with a lot of scoring. There's no question about it. So if Mike Evans is scoring, it stands to reason Lamar is going to have to be throwing as well. 9 different at least there's been 6 games the Ravens have played. 2 games they just blew everyone out, right? In the 4 games in which it was competitive, and we don't think Tampa Bay gets blown out here. We think Tampa Bay, pretty good team. We think this one's going to be close. Baltimore will be competitive here. In the 4 games in which the Ravens have been competitive, Zay Flowers has at least 9 targets in every single one of them, a 30% target share. And wide receivers that have seen at least 8 targets against Tampa Bay, averaging 18.7 fantasy points per game. That's pretty good. Give me some Zay Flowers as a top 15 play this week.
How good do you think Zay Flowers can be, Connor? Can he be a legit wide receiver 1 the rest of the way? Because, the past 2 weeks in particular, these are games that they won. 21 targets, 240 receiving yards. He's just so clearly the number 1 guy in that pass offense. Like, can he be, in that kind of category with like a Malik Neighbors type of guy the rest of the way?
I think he'll be on the fringe of that. I don't ever expect that kind of production.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe? Like the way that Amon-Ra is.
Because the volume. That's the key. I don't want to call it cheap volume, but it's schemed volume is what it is under Todd Monken.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, are you asking from an NFL perspective or are you asking from a fantasy football perspective?
I think both. I think from an NFL perspective, it's interesting. It seems like he has taken a leap. This guy was
fantasy
talented.
Yes.
Talented. He's crazy talented.
Fantasy, yes. NFL, I would say no. Okay. I think eventually teams are going to force them to do something else. Yeah. Because they don't throw to a lot of other wide receivers. So why would you keep allowing the not cheap, but the schemed manufactured yards?
I'll tell you why. Because otherwise, if you're doubling, then Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry just have wide open lanes, and you've got to keep that spy there.
It's a well-built offense.
It's a well-built offense
I wonder,
as well.
Like, we focus so much on the impact that Lamar Jackson has benefiting Derrick Henry in the lanes. Like the yards before contact stuff for Derrick Henry this year is like triple what it was last year. It's completely insane. But probably haven't focused enough on how much Derrick Henry positively impacts guys like Zay Flowers. Like, it just seems like the combination of Lamar and Henry just being so destructive for opposing defenses just makes it easier for guys like Likely and Bateman and Flowers.
Great space.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got the ability, Derrick Henry does. Like, Derrick Henry is a guy that, like, once he starts getting up ahead of steam and it's all downhill, like, it's just like he's pushing off guys, and he can break off a 20, 30, 40-yard run, and they just didn't have, all due respect to Justice Hill and Gus Edwards, and they had a little bit of explosiveness with Keaton Mitchell there for a cup of coffee last year, but they were rolling out Melvin Gordon at one point last year. Henry just brings a dimension to that run game that they just haven't had there. He's an elite running back. They've never had an elite running back there.
I mean, he's Derrick Henry. He's the greatest running back since, peak Adrian Peterson.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And consistent, which is so rare at the position. But to put a bow on it, Matthew, I fully agree with you. I love Zay Flowers this week against the Bucs. I think Todd Bowles' secondary has had an awful year, to be honest with you, and he's going to get a ton
And they're
of work.
banged up.
Yes,
that's
part of it.
It's had a tough year. Yeah. They're banged up. They're scheming them perfectly. They're scheming, and while fantasy-wise, there's it's been inconsistent, right? Because all of a sudden Nelson Aguilar catches 2 passes, and then here comes Charlie Kohler and Isaiah Likely, and you're like, wait, help me make sense of this. But my point is that they're getting just enough from all the other pieces that Zay Flowers is obviously the focal point, but it's hard to double him and bracket him. He's so creative in his route running. They scheme him open. They do a good job, and so anyway.
Brock Bowers.
Yeah, we're a Zay fan.
Brock Bowers also on the love list here. The Rams are allowing the second most fantasy points per game to tight ends. Devontae Adams straight to the Jets. This is Brock Bowers' offense through the air.
Yes, number 1 tight end the rest of the way. Probably in a tier by himself. How many other guys are the clear number 1 target on their teams to tight end? Probably Travis Kelce now for the Chiefs. But outside of that, it's just really Brock Bowers. And Brock Bowers obviously expect to get more volume than Kelce the rest of the way. And the Rams defense just doesn't have the horses this year. It's a combination of very young and then also very old in spots like a corner with Trey White struggling a bit. So just doesn't seem like there's any real opposition against Brock Bowers, and he's going to get as many targets as he can handle.
Yeah, only tight end this season with 4 games of 6 or more receptions, and that was with Adams in the lineup for some of that. So Jacoby Myers also banged up a little bit. He could flirt with 15 targets this week.
Yeah.
Some others receiving votes. Tyreek Hill on the love list here. Jacoby Myers that you just brought up, Matthew, of course. We'll see his status. JuJu Smith-Schuster, DeMario Pop Douglas. Bub Means tonight on Thursday Night Football. Yes, we have a Bub Means appearance as the Saints are out of wide receivers, and Dalton Schultz on the list as well.
So it's crazy to have Tyreek Hill ever to make the love list because he's such an obvious start.
That's
and
fair.
He's not even on the love list. He's in others receiving votes, but that just shows you the state of the Dolphins passing game in the year of our Lord, 2024. Tyreek Hill comes in at 22 for me. He's played 2 games with Tyler Huntley, at least that Huntley has started. 32% target share, and hopefully off the bye, they've figured more things out of this offense. Colts have allowed the 4th most yards on deep passes so far this season. We'll see if Jacoby Myers plays. He's still banged up, but worth noting the Rams have allowed at least 1 touchdown to a wide receiver in 4 of 5 games so far this year. JuJu Smith-Schuster, proud member, newest member of Live at Noon on the Cock. That's the way my season has gone. But look, he had a 24% target share.
Pretty big
last
bid
time
on
we
him.
saw him. Well, you kept outbidding me. And I was gun shy.
You rage bid.
I rage bid because stupid Connor over here outbid me on Tyrone Tracy and
Xavier Legette.
and Xavier Legette, and it's 3 times in a row. Effing Moneybags Connor over here.
That's good
living.
It's just so I was just screw it. This money's burning a hole in my pocket. I gotta do something. I keep
That's how the Patriots ended up with him, by the way.
That's what we're dealing with here. That's why it's the league of assholes. Because if these assholes would leave anything on the waiver wire for you to bid on, what?
I cut him for someone better. I remember I just got rid of him. I didn't want him.
Yeah, and well, it is what it is. You get producer Damien had to cut Legette. That's the other thing is that as you get into buys and injuries, we have 1 IR spot.
Oh, it's terrible.
And so it's awful. So you're actually having to cut good people.
Yeah, I had to cut JuJu.
Right.
It's very annoying.
Yes.
I had to do it because I traded with Connor. It was a 2-for-1 where I got Russell Wilson and J.K. Dobbins for Sam Darnold.
I had to cut Zach Ertz, who you immediately picked up because that's
great week, 11 points.
It's a bunch of vultures out there, but you're just you're playing this roster roulette because you don't want to drop the guys that are on bye. But anyway, give me some JuJu. Give me some JuJu. DeMario Douglas as well, Pop Douglas. Jacksonville allows the 3rd highest catch rate to the slot. Worth noting that as well. And we'll talk about Bub Means a little bit later when we talk that game tonight.
Jay, Nico Collins on IR, and we finally saw Dalton Schultz was like the Undertaker meme. He came out of nowhere after we thought he was long gone.
Well, this is the same thing last year where I was criticized, lambasted for drafting Dalton Schultz last year, and he ended up being relatively solid. He is the 3rd viable guy in this offense. It's Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. There were rumors about other people emerging, like David Hutchinson. They didn't surface.
He didn't
It was the Dalton Schultz show. Just quickly before we move on, Matthew, it seems like Tua Tagovailoa is just going to come back next week. That's been all the reporting. Tyreek Hill has just been completely under the radar. is he just back to being like the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy as soon as Tua comes back?
I think so.
I would trade Jamar Chase for Tyreek Hill, I think. Like, I'd be looking at that.
I don't know if I would. Tua's one more bump away from being done for the season.
I'm sure, but like...
Have you seen Joe Burrow's wrist lately?
That's fair.
And
That's
I'll
fair.
say I've literally seen some leagues, more shallow leagues, but I've seen a couple leagues where Jalen Waddle's available.
Yeah. It's been that bad. It has been that bad.
It's been that bad.
Yeah.
And you're not starting Jalen Waddle this week, but I agree with you. I do think Tyreek Hill is a buy low candidate. It's worth, by the way, seeing if Tua Tagovailoa was dropped, because I did see him dropped in some leagues, as well. So worth seeing all of that as well. Last thing on JuJu, just while he's not only on the others receiving votes because I'm trying to talk myself into it, but it is a good matchup. Niners give up the 4th most yards per game to the slot. He had a 24% target share the last time we saw him. And as bad as 2022 was, he still averaged over 11 fantasy points per game, 11.6 in his one full season with the Chiefs.
Wide receiver 27?
Yeah, wide receiver 31.
There you go. All right.
Like, so he's like
In our league, that's gold.
And if you're in a 12-team 3 wide receiver league, you could do a lot worse than JuJu and probably have.
Move over to the hate list where Michael Pittman tops this group. I mean, it's quite this simple, Matthew. He's only got 1 game this season with more than 40 receiving yards. And also, this offense is better through the air with Joe Flacco. Anthony Richardson will be back for the Colts.
Yeah, he's played 3 full games with Anthony Richardson the first 3 weeks of the season, averaged 6.6 fantasy points per game. Almost 60% of his fantasy points this year have come with comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco at quarterback. Dolphins, by the way, not a great matchup. They've allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. Michael Pittman outside my top 35 for the week. Josh Downs back at practice today, as was Trey Sermon. Be interesting to see Jonathan Taylor not spotted at practice today. We'll see how that running game plays out just while we're talking about the Colts. But Pittman on the hate list.
The Bills make the big move for Amari Cooper, Jay, but he makes the hate list. Tennessee is allowing the fewest yards per game this season to wide receivers. Also, Amari Cooper might need a week to get acclimated to this offense.
Yeah, there's a few things. 1, he might need that time to get acclimated. 2, they're 9-point favorites anyway, so they're probably not going to be throwing a ton. 3, L'Jarius Sneed potentially learning to shut him down. L'Jarius Sneed missed practice yesterday, so we'll see what his status is, but regardless. The other thing, too, is like Amari Cooper, I think it's probably going to be a good move and it's going to work out and he's going to be the best wide receiver on the Bills. He wasn't separating at all, and he's 30 years old now. So, look, he's probably going to be fine, but there is a chance that Amari Cooper isn't the same guy as well, which you need to
outside my top 30 for the week. You mentioned L'Jarius Sneed in that Titans secondary. Only 2 wide receivers have scored at least 11 fantasy points against the Titans so far this year. They've allowed the fewest yards per game to wide receivers this year. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. It's a big game here. How familiar will Amari Cooper be with the offense he just got there? There's a couple of things. They'll say, like, run a go route or whatever. There'll be a couple of basic things they'll put in. They'll put in a specific package for him. And I could see Josh Allen trying to force the ball to him to get him a score, welcome to the team kind of thing. But just given the matchup, given the fact that they're favorites, given the fact that he just got there, I'd want to wait a week. I want to see it before I'm ready to stick Cooper back in my lineup. Again, outside my top 30 for week 7.
George Pickens also outside your top 30, Matthew. The Jets are allowing the fewest receptions per game to wide receivers. Pickens' snap count has been very weird lately. Just not a good situation for Pickens.
No. By the way, since week 2, George Pickens is wide receiver 57 in fantasy points per game. He's got 1 game, Connor, with more than 11 fantasy points during that stretch. And wide receivers that have faced your New York Jets have caught a league-low 54% of their targets. Pickens just seems so inconsistent. Like, he makes these brilliant plays, and then there's plays where you're just sort of like, eh. And you have to wonder if that's what the coaching staff is seeing, where, he's getting asked about, why are you playing Calvin Austin over him? Why are some of these other guys? And Tomlin's dodging it, Arthur Smith is dodging it, but you just have to wonder, when you watch those games, sometimes it just, where's George Pickens?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Also, the Jets have a great pass defense, suspect run defense. So what do you think Arthur Smith is going to do?
Just run right
He's
at
going to run the ball.
Yeah,
he's
that's what the
begging.
Bills did.
He loves this matchup. It's his favorite matchup of the season after Smith.
49ers did it. The Bills did it. Pickens might not be playable in fantasy, but he's a great quote. I'll give him that.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a really, really great quote this week where he called Amon-Ra St. Brown a slot merchant. He said that's how you get Amon-Ra St. Browns, slot merchants that, schematically get fed the ball.
What is George Pickens then? Occasional slant route to the house merchant.
Slot merchants drink for free, by the way,
Yeah, by
today.
the way,
I love that. We love the slot merchants.
We love the slot merchants.
Josh Downs.
We stand with the sun god.
Yeah. Amari St. Brown, Josh Downs. CeeDee Lamb plays a ton in the slot. We love all of them.
Cooper Kupp.
Jayden Reed.
Yeah,
Jayden Reed, phenomenal.
Listen, new friend of the podcast, Detective Drake London.
40%
New slot
literally
merchant.
just really
Reformed.
talked about the fact that how moving to the slot on the definitive Drake London interview that we had on yesterday's show. Jay, I know you haven't had a chance to read it yet, but listen to it. I know you watch all the shows when you're not here. But he literally, or watch it. But he talked about the fact that him moving to the slot actually has opened up a lot of different things from they've been more creative for him. So yes, as a show, we are pro slot merchants.
We love the slot merchants.
The slot merchants drink for free.
Love a good slot merchant.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, that sounds like a bad Spin Doctors cover band.
Yes.
The slot merchants.
The slot merchants.
Yeah,
You're right.
They're like a local band at your local, hey, 2 for 1, it's flip night on Wednesday, and the slot merchants are on at 9.
They only play two Princes just over and over and over again. Yeah, that makes sense.
They feel like a bar band, like a college bar band, the slot merchants.
Yeah. Bad at music, good at PPR.
Yeah, exactly. But they're probably fun. They probably put on a fun show, and
they go on at 10 p.m. so the crowd's had a few drinks, so everybody enjoys
1000%.
the hits. Nothing but the hits.
Yeah, the slot merchants plays a lot of like 70s and 80s rock. I feel like
we need
and maybe some 90s.
We need a drum right in front of our desk that says the slot
merchants. That's our band.
Yes.
Or like a little stage right there where something like that. We'll figure it out. I'm gonna talk to Pops, who does he does
he does a great job with our set.
He does everything with Pops runs everything here.
The budget is what we need. That's
you know what?
You're out there listening.
Give me a second. Somebody out there is what you should do.
Yeah, take the second.
You know what? Start a band and call yourselves the Slot Merchants, and then that way you could just become the official band of the FF Happy Hour here. Like we don't have a band.
I don't think any fantasy show does.
Yes, we would be the first for that.
So we're open to it. Anyway, just if there's a cover band out there, or even it even has originals as well. I just don't think we can afford originals.
No.
But yeah, if there's a cover band out there called the Slot, or wants to form one, Slot Merchants. Open invitation to play here on Fantasy Football Happy Hour.
The first ever built-for-purpose band for a fantasy football podcast.
No idea what they're going to play.
Somebody out there will do it. Somebody out there will. They'll be. Come on.
Somebody will
Where's
do it.
Where's my slot merchants? Where are my slot merchants at?
Yeah.
And by the way, and their fan base can be the Slotties.
Oh, it's pretty dangerous nickname. Yeah. Yes. All right. All right.
Where my Slotties at? Come on.
How about Tucker Kraft? He also makes the hate list.
Kraft?
He makes the hate list because he only got one game this season with more than 5
targets. He's not a slot merchant. He's not a touchdown merchant. He's not a target merchant. He's had one game this year with more than 5 targets. It's not a great matchup against the Texans. Houston allows the 3rd fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends. They allow a league low 52% catch rate, I should say, to opposing tight ends. Tucker Kraft outside my top 12 for the week. And that's saying something given how desperate that position is. But just tough matchup as well, and just feels like Jordan Love is looking elsewhere. Tucker Kraft, the definition of a touchdown-dependent tight end.
We move over to...
Also, a good but not as good as slot merchants. Touchdown-dependent tight ends is a good band name, too.
Yeah.
It's not as good as slot merchants, but what?
TDTE?
TDTE, yeah. TDTE. I feel like they play like more synth pop.
Okay.
Yeah, they're more
getting
dance
away from
music.
the 90s alternative?
Yeah, don't you feel like they're like
synth pop.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's what I feel like. Okay. I feel like touchdown-dependent tight ends. Well, the first band that popped in my head was Dance Gavin Dance. Okay. And the lead singer of Dance Gavin Dance was a big fan of my old podcast. Don't know if he's found us over here yet.
Did he make a song for the show?
He did not. We did have songs for the show from the old show, though. Eric Hutchinson, international recording superstar Eric Hutchinson, recorded theme songs for my old show. He was a big fan.
Something we could maybe work on in
year
year 4.
We love Hutch.
It's a year 4 thing.
We love Hutch. Maybe we'll get to. But anyway, the Slot Merchants. That's our band. We just haven't met them yet or know that they exist. But that's the show band. Slot Merchants.
Love-hate quarterbacks, and you'll like this one, Matthew, as we kick things off with Jayden Daniels, who's getting all kinds of love around the NFL. And when Lamar was asked about it, Lamar continued to shower Jayden Daniels.
That's Lamar Jackson, to be clear.
No, I believe he deserves all the hype he's getting. He played a tremendous game out there. They just came up short. And he's been proving it. His rookie season, first 6 games, he's been playing amazing.
Lamar Jackson on what he told Jayden Daniels after the Ravens' Week 6 win. I need that jersey. I think that's the ultimate sign of respect to a rookie.
Yeah, I like too how Matthew clarified that it was Lamar Jackson, as opposed to like Lamar Stevens, backup small forward.
The other
on the
Lamar
Pistons.
Jackson that was a UDFA corner from Nebraska.
You don't know.
Yes.
I'm trying to clean this up for Connor. You know, you think you get a professional host, but listen, he's
clean
got
up your
Jets,
mess.
he's doing Mets, he's got a bunch of different,
That's fair.
things. He's all over the place. So I just want to make sure for our listeners that did not know which Lamar he was referring to.
True.
It was Lamar Jackson.
Connor's head is very much in Game 4 NLCS.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. But instead, I get to listen to synth pop and
At any rate,
God knows what.
Jayden
Daniels.
Jayden Daniels is
Makes
my
the
number
love
one
list.
quarterback. Not only makes my love list, he's the number one quarterback in fantasy football for me this week. He's at home to the Carolina Panthers. Daniels is averaging at least 24 fantasy points a game this year when the Commanders score at least 30 points. Why do I bring that up? Well, the Commanders have the highest implied team total this week. Carolina allows 33.8 points per game. They also allow touchdown passes at the third highest rate. That's right. Faith in 5. Jayden Daniels, my number one quarterback in fantasy football this week. Worth noting, he was the runner-up to Ride or Die. Feels
You
like I
regret that one?
What?
You regret it?
Kind of.
Wow, that's an early hook.
No, it has to be. If you had to adjust now, you clearly take Jayden Daniels over Kyler Murray.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I'm sticking
New
by
information
Kyler Murray.
changes your view.
We did a show where I said here was the runner-up at every position, and it's actually like Drake London was my wide receiver. Pacheco was my running back when he hurt, but and Jayden Daniels, I said on I have receipts. I said this before the season that Jayden Daniels was my runner-up, my number 2 to Kyler Murray for my ride or die at the quarterback position. It just, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But it's great. But what's great is even though he's not my ride or die, he's kind of my ride or die because I'm a Commanders fan.
That's fair.
Right.
Yes.
He's my personal ride or die.
You still get to enjoy this.
Yes. I get to enjoy it. I get to bask in it. I get to glow in it. I get to bathe in it. That's right. Picture that.
We're good.
Bathing in Jayden Daniels.
We'll move to Baker Mayfield on the love list instead. We talked about this matchup, Jay.
If they bottled his sweat, I would buy enough. I would buy enough to bathe in it.
Lather your body in.
Or a bathtub.
It's actually a horrific scene.
Wow. It's like Amari Stoudemire bathing in wine.
No, that was way better. That was kind of unique.
That was kind of cool. Yeah. Albeit very expensive and perhaps financially irresponsible from Amari. That's okay. Baker Mayfield leads the NFL in passing touchdowns, guys.
Yes.
He's got 3 more than everyone else. Just airing it out, like we talked about. There's only 2 teams who throw the ball more.
I can't imagine what the odds were that Baker Mayfield would lead the NFL in touchdown passes.
There's 15 passing touchdowns. No one else has more than 12. It's Joe Burrow. And by the way, Jordan Love has 12 passing touchdowns in 4 games.
4 games.
He is absolutely chucking it at the moment. But yeah, Baker, look, in this offense, and the fact it helps too that they have a bad defense. They just have a bad passing defense at the moment, the Bucs. So Mayfield, he's a must-start guy, and I wish I didn't trade him to Connor. I wish I traded Sam Darnold instead first.
I don't blame you. Baker's finished as a top 7 quarterback in every game this year except for one. Teams facing the Ravens averaging 37 pass attempts per game, 4th most in the NFL, partially because their offense is so good. And to your point, we talked about this. They're a pass funnel defense. The Ravens are so good against the run, you have to throw against them. It's one of the reasons why we like Godwin and Evans this week as well as Baker Mayfield.
Kirk Cousins also makes the hate list here, Matthew.
No, love list.
The love list, because he's a top 10 play.
Mets game 4.
Jets, he's he's discombobulated.
Jose Quintana.
He's got
a lot going on.
I need Francisco Lindor, we need you to save us again.
We really need you to come through.
Yeah.
And Kirk Cousins hopefully comes through against the Seahawks. QB7 here right now, Matthew. Each of the last 3 quarterbacks to face Seattle, and this includes Daniel Jones, by the way, scored 22-plus points. The other quarterbacks were Jared Goff and Brock Purdy.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, the Falcons have the 2nd highest implied team total this week over the last 3 games. Seattle allowing a league-high 10 yards per pass attempt. Feels like it's really clicking as well. Detective Drake London, again, in the definitive Drake London interview earlier this week, right here on Fantasy Football Happy Hour, talking about how him and Kirk constantly, they voice memo with each other, they're texting, they're constantly working. Feels like that offense has really hit a rhythm. Yep. It really does.
Reek Woolen also hasn't been practicing. That's a big deal for Seattle. He's been the best player on their defense, I would argue. And if he doesn't play, that's bad news for the Seahawks and good news for Kirk Cousins.
Some others receiving votes. Drake Maye makes the others receiving votes. He's QB 15, but in Superflex, Drake Maye could be viable, as well as Andy Dalton, who is QB 20, because he's got your Commanders here, Matthew. But Drake Maye against Jacksonville, this is a great matchup for the rookie quarterback, and we saw some willingness to actually take shots down the field in his debut. The turnovers are there. It doesn't matter as much in fantasy if Drake Maye is going to try to push the ball.
It does not. Look, I mean, every quarterback, literally every quarterback that has faced the Jacksonville Jaguars this year has finished the week as a top 12 fantasy quarterback.
It's fail-proof.
It's fail-proof. You, Jay Croucher, could face the Jaguars.
True.
And
Let's see.
And
they haven't played the Browns. What do we think, Deshaun?
Oh my God,
they played the Browns.
Yeah.
They did play the Browns.
Yeah,
so that was just one good finish, right?
Well, he wasn't great, but they beat him. But the Browns won.
But he finished
as a top 12 fantasy
That's the
quarterback.
point.
That's the point.
That's insane.
Anyway, they're giving up 24 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. That's 4 more than any other team. May gets you a little bit of points with his league. I was a top 15 play this week. And then Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, the Red Rocket, the Red Beard, Red. Red Reddington. Proud NBC show.
Robert
Company
Redford?
man.
Yeah.
What?
Robert Redford?
Robert Redford also, yeah. My co-star.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Loose
Yeah.
Loose
My
term.
colleague.
Yeah, co-star.
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 It's like Justin Watson co-star for Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, even that's yeah.
They each get a Super Bowl
They get a ring?
They
Yeah,
each
they
get
all
the
get a
same ring.
Right.
Just saying, it's Redford's last movie. All right, 37 pass attempts at least in 3 of the last 4 games for Andy Dalton. Commanders allowed touchdown passes at the second highest rate in the NFL. I think Dalton, in negative game script here, should do pretty well. He's a top 20 play for me this week.
The hate list, Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes. Yes, that Patrick Mahomes. Jared Goff, QB 21 against the Vikings. Patrick Mahomes against the Niners. Matthew, QB 17.
Vikings have allowed the lowest passer rating to opposing quarterbacks this season. They have more interceptions than touchdown passes. This is a big divisional battle, and Brian Flores has had 2 weeks to get his defense prepared for Jared Goff and the Lions. I took the under in this game. I think this is, I know people are saying a shootout, but I think this is too important a game. I think both defenses show up in a big way here. And Patrick Mahomes yet to have a game this season with 17 or more fantasy points, right? 4 of the 6 quarterbacks that have faced the Niners so far this year have scored under 14 fantasy points. They have not allowed multiple touchdown passes in a game since week 2. So it's just, I think, again, they're going to win. They're going to win on defense. They're going to win on, he's not running enough. I'm outside my top 15, Patrick Mahomes. But you know what time it is?
I think it's time to choose your lineup.
It's time to choose your lineup. Brought to you by our friends at Jameson. Join our unofficial call to try and get pro football to Dublin. Visit jamesonsports.com for more information. Here's a quarterback and 3 flex plays that can help you win your Week 7 matchup. We start with Geno Smith. We talked about Kirk Cousins in this matchup. Other side of the ball against the Falcons is Geno. Falcons have allowed at least 2 touchdown passes in 3 of their past 4 games. All quarterbacks, not one quarterback has more pass attempts per game this season than Geno Smith. He's averaging over 41 tosses per game. How about Chase Brown? Zach Moss on the hate list stands to reason. Chase Brown on the love list. Over the past 3 weeks, very quietly, Chase Brown is the 7th best running back in fantasy. He's had at least 14 fantasy points in all 3 games. And over the past 2 weeks, he's out-touched Zach Moss 27-19, including a season-high 62% of the snaps last week. At wide receiver, how about Lad McConkey? Right, he's led the Chargers in targets in all but 1 game so far this season. He's got almost a 27% target share, and it's a nice matchup against Arizona as the Cardinals allow the 2nd highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers. Lad McConkey, another slot merchant. By the way, at tight end, we've talked a lot about Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, and that Buccaneers offense. So Cade Otton makes my list here as a top 10 fantasy tight end. He's actually tight end 10 in points per game over the last 4 weeks with at least 9 fantasy points in 3 or 4 games. Ravens very quietly allow the 2nd most yards per game to opposing tight ends. So Cade Otton, again, we think that's going to be a kind of a pass funnel offense for the Buccaneers on Monday night. Cade Otton will be a part of it. If you're desperate for a tight end, Cade Otton is a choice.
We're taking our final break. When we're back, last call, the Thursday Night Football preview for Broncos Saints. They're calling it the Sean Payton Bowl. We're calling it the Bub Means Bowl. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. It's time for last call. Let's take a look at the most bet props for Thursday Night Football on DraftKings right now. Alvin Kamara receiving yards 25+. That's -245. Cortland Sutton receiving yards 25+. That's -575. Cortland Sutton receiving yards at 40+, also on here at -175. Bo Nix rushing yards 25 plus at -125. Devon Vele receiving yards 25 plus at -185. Jay, that might be the most pathetic public board I have ever seen in my life. Please tell me you have something more interesting.
Alvin Kamara is going to get marketed like he has never been marketed before, as he is the only famous person playing football tonight. But I have another bet, and it's the type of bet that the forefathers, they fought for. Foster Moreau, over 10.5 receiving yards. He's gone comfortably over. Well, he went comfortably over last week. He squeaked over the week before, but he has gone over 2 weeks in a row. And here's the thing. The Saints are just devoid of human beings on offense. And Foster Moreau is a human being who will be out there. He's playing 50% of the snaps. I think he's good as well. I like Foster Moreau. I think they can play a lot of 2 tight end sets with Moreau and Juwan Johnson just because I don't have any wide receivers. So give me Foster Moreau over 10.5 receiving yards.
I love it. That's a good call. Matthew, what do you got?
Well, they do have a wide receiver. His name is Bub Means, and so I am taking Bub Means for over 3.5 receptions. First off, tied for a team-high 21% target share last week. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, I should say, are both out. He had a higher route participation in Week 6 than Mason Tipton or Cedric Wilson, some of the other wide receivers that you'll get to see tonight as well. No Patrick Surtain for the Broncos either. So Spencer Rattler, who has a little bit of gunslingery to him, give me the over in 3.5 receptions on Bub Means. And let's be clear. What's more fun if you're watching this dumb game tonight? What's going to be more fun than saying, come on, Bub Means? Nothing's more fun than that. So come on, Bub. There you go. That's what I'm pitching.
I'll be rooting for no offense. I'm going the under on the total here. The total is 37. Listen, this isn't rocket science here for me. It's Spencer Rattler, rookie quarterback.
Yes.
It's Bo Nix, rookie quarterback.
Yes.
Sean Payton wants to run the ball.
Sure.
Clint Kubiak's going to be very careful with his rookie quarterback. I'm going to see a running clock in this. I love the under tonight in this game.
Okay.
Yeah. Little revenge game for Sean Payton.
Yep. Look at your top players, Matthew.
Yeah.
What a smorgasbord.
It's very condensed. Usually this thing is like a scroll
Yes.
of 15 to 20 players.
7 names.
There are 7
Bob
names
Means is
on
wide
here.
receiver
And
50.
yes.
Yeah. And no, I didn't even rank Devon Vele, who America's betting.
Heavily.
So you're starting Kamara, and that's basically it, outside of maybe Javonte Williams in the flex, and then Juwan Johnson if you're desperate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will say the Broncos top 5 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. I do think Juwan Johnson has a chance at getting into the end zone here. Be interesting to see if we get any more clarity on this running back room. Connor, your guy Audric Estime.
He's back.
He's back.
You might see some action.
Could he see some action? Could he be this week's Sean Tucker?
Oh, I don't know. Volume might not be there, but if Estime finds his way into the end zone, I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's the role they use him in. He's a tough runner, a downhill runner.
He is a tough runner. All right. So, anyway, we're going to be watching. And by the way, come March, you're going to be begging for a game like this.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Watch football.
Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay, Connor, and the Slot Merchants, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you later. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.